It makes you wonder. I'm going to share this guy's frequencies are heavily strong. So 6:30, Friday, 3rd to the 3rd, 2023. Rumours of wars. Is it World War III by the banking elites? This is the guy's channel. France to give Ukraine Mirage fighter jets and USA to give F-16s. Russia says this will be a war. Off the grid desert YouTube channel portraying this. And also there's implied of more polar shifts, Nibiru Winwood planetary environments between now and Monday's date coming up, which I'd found the video. So I've seen some old videos, a couple of movies, suggesting that Russia will get involved in supporting somehow get involved. I'm not expert in any of this. Off-grid desert farmer support and whatever it's called. Japan will conquer China with its It's demonic times we're living in. And then he doesn't put the links or the articles, but I'm going to share the bit where he claims this. He's reading up some articles. Do you know, they all in history, bankers, corporations, have planned this. Always have been in the past. NATO. What is NATO? It's a group, is it a group of countries? Military. If you look at how was NATO, I wonder if it's educated.org has any link to NATO. History. How did it begin? There are a lot of demonic entities around there, banging. So, veterans awaken. All the history, my neck is being radiated, my glands. So I wonder in the past, there's always a connection somewhere. I wonder but ex-veterans may know more. Ex-military people. US military. Who are the real entities out there in the globalist plan? World War III is nothing compared to what they've done before as well. It's all about business and commerce. It's all fear-mongering. Illuminati. Pop up some everything. So you've always had corporations and banking trusts and Rockefellers and Illuminati connected somewhere, somehow, and always had the Asian fall to the evil empire communism. And if you didn't stop them in the Vietnam at that time, this is some ex-veteran, didn't know what the President of the United States and his entire cabinet were in fact covert agents for international corporations or power groups who wanted war. Of course it's going to make money, isn't it? This author claims, I later discovered it's a money maker. Of course it still is. For corporations, names like General Electric and other companies, Chase Manhattan Bank, Rockwell International, Merck, AT&T, IBM, the computer company, dozens of other illuminated corporate giants who attended those burger get-togethers every year and make plans for your life. 21 Gold's Illuminati. Manufacturers of the planes make money, don't they? Tanks, battleships, missiles, rockets, bullets, assault rifles, mortars, field rations, uniforms, boots, medical supplies, prosthetics, tents, mobile river crossings equipment, helicopters, gunships, radar, missiles, tracking systems, high-tech electronics, spy satellites, well, they're using balloons these days. Oh, they love war. Oil companies love war. CIA loves war. MI5 in England loves war. The Mossad, M-O-S-S-A-D, loves war. The covert groups working for the Illuminati once have been responsible for instigating most of the conflicts of the world. War makes money and power into the hands of the elite's manipulators, who always remain hidden from our view. They place their front men and mouthpieces out there for us to see and debate about it and send out letters to, but then themselves always remain in disguise. Usually seen in the most genteel, civilized and honor of humanity's rock-like. My goodness me, really, like the royal family in England. I don't know about that one. Orchestrated wars always provides a convenient cover for drugs and trafficking. I don't know about that, but there you go. Which again, you could pin the tail on the CIA. And the biggest player on the planet, war, robs ordinary people, mostly the poor. And what's going on now, cost of living in the world, is not just England, is it? It's American families and their sons and daughters, and it makes slaves of the rest of us. Who pays for the money that fills the coffers of war profiteers? It's always follow where the pound sign of what currency you are in the country you live. And how does the government get that money? First, from their pals in the banking industry, and then from the public, of course, taxation. War is always handy, cover for pulling your rights and constitutional liberties out from under you, which today is rapidly escalating at a proportional rate, driving America into arms of Nazi-style police state. Like, it quotes what it is. This article goes into quite detail, actually. In earlier decades, the goals of the Illuminati elites, their international corporations, their political puppets, and their representatives of the military-industrial complex were to make money and to expand their power, but today the goal is destruction, this dismantling of the United States and its people. And that is nothing new because I've seen 2 films about it. Oh, once they're cold, I'll be fresh up and try and get warm. The radiation is strong at the moment. Well, many in today's military still cling to the cover story. America, defenders of freedom and democracy. Their ranks are dwindling. And more servicemen, ex-servicemen come to see the lies and the layers for what they are. And they're organising, getting vocal, reaching out, thanks to the internet. But they have a long way to go. They hope to prevent the next orchestrated war, and that was at the time Iran. That will be the crisis driven stamped into existence using the this article is worth reading. Soldiers speak out. 24th July 2008. West Point. Ready to serve despite US crazy vets. 2007. EducateYourself.org. I'm just going to check on the channel. So we have the streaming. This is demonic times we're living in. Oh, wasn't I sharing that screen? Okay, let's go on to EducateYourself.org screen. My neck's swollen. Who'd have thought all these years to make the world is what it is? Who would have thought? I'll be back.
People, they could claim to be a Christian, but you would never know it by the way they act. They're mean. They're mean. I'm talking about Christians, mean and judgmental. You know, the people that attack us the worst on our YouTube channel are Christians. They tear us up, folks. They say horrible things about us. They shred us into pieces. And these are Christians. It shouldn't be that way to treat your brother in Christ. Just because I don't agree with every scripture that you do, you're going to tear me to shreds? Is that what Jesus would do? You know, Jesus Christ, the only people that Jesus had problems with during the Bible, if you read the Bible, with chainsaws and haul them off. You know, all we could do is walk around our neighborhood. So many things, Jim Stoltenberg, on whether the pilots will be retired NATO. This means that there is already an agreement with NATO for the next escalation steps with the U.S. delivery of F-16 fighters. The fighter mission is NATO's last resort if the Ukrainians spring out offensive fails. And it will happen if there is no agreement in the negotiation. Yeah. The French Air Force has 99 Mirage 2000 fighter jets of versions 5, C, and D. The Navy has an additional 40 fighters. France could begin training Ukrainian pilots for the Mirage 2000 fighter jets in Poland, according to French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu. During a meeting of the French Senate on February the 28th, the French Defense Minister was asked about the possibility supply of fighter jets to Kiev. There is said to be currently 12 Mirage 2000C fighter jets available for sale. Are you planning to deliver them to Ukraine or train Ukrainian pilots? Asked one of the senators. Then another senator asked Lecornu directly, is it true that our Air Force is ready to train Ukrainian pilots in Warsaw? This information I have been given, I would like to verify it. Lecornu confirmed that Paris and Kiev are in talks to supply fighter jets and train Ukrainian pilots. However, he stressed that there are many issues that are hindering the delivery. Logistics, training, and maintenance engineering capability make it difficult to procure the aircraft in the short term. He also stated that the priority at the moment is not the supply of fighter aircraft, but ammunition. There is an urgent need. The ability of the Ukrainians to endure rests on the ammunition. In January, French Emmanuel Macron himself spoke about the possibility of sending fighter jets to Ukraine to help it face the Russian invasion, to which he cautiously replied, nothing is ruled out in principle. Several analysts considered the French Mirage 2000 fighters to be the ideal choice for the Ukrainian Air Force. Ukraine needs 80 F-16s. Ukrainian forces will need at least 18 months to learn how to fly and maintain F-16 fighter jets, a senior Pentagon official told Congress. The issue in question of the potential F-16 deployment to Ukraine has been preoccupying the Biden administration for months, as Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has publicly asked Washington to send him fighter jets. In a similar vein, members of the U.S. Congress would also like to see their country send fighter jets in support of the Ukrainian armed forces.
Not going anywhere
According
tomorrow.
to a
It's
senior U.S.
freezing.
Defense Department official, at best, Washington could send old used F-16s to Ukraine within the next 18 months, while purchasing and delivering new aircraft would take up to 6 years. As for the number of fighter jets that would be required to effectively upgrade the Ukrainian fleet or air force, there are estimated at 80, according to the Washington Post. Medvedev of Russia says this will amount to a declaration of war. Former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, has warned NATO not to reinforce Ukraine with fighter jets, arguing that doing so would be tantamount to a declaration of war by North Atlantic Alliance or NATO.
Okay.
According to him, the only reason why NATO is reluctant to deliver fighter jets or long-range weapon systems to Ukraine is that whoever decides to deliver or repair such equipment and weapons, foreign mercenaries and military trainers should be considered legitimate targets by the Russian armed forces, Medvedev wrote in a Telegram post. He added, however, that the West may not resist for much longer because the temptation to destroy Russia is great. Although as president and then as prime minister of Russia, Medvedev was described as a moderate. He is one of the most ardent supporters of the Russian operation in Ukraine, often launching vitriolic attacks and threats against Kiev and its Western allies. So this is a tweet by the Eastern Herald. France plans to supply Ukraine with Mirage 2000 fighter jets. This is a newspaper called the Eastern Herald, dated March the 3rd. So this is the tweet. France plans to supply Ukraine with Mirage 2000 fighter jets. French Defense Minister Sebastian Lecornu said Paris was considering transferring the Mirage 2000s to Kiev. France considers, and there's another tweet from somebody else. So this is one of the breaking news. Now, we have a conflict of situation here. We have a conflict of information. Now, we have heard from Anthony Blinken and other people in our Defense Department and our State Department. They keep denying that they're not going to do this. You know, in one statement to the press, they said, yes, we're considering sending F-16s, and yes, it has already been approved, and we have approved this through NATO that other countries can send F-16s to Ukraine. And then in the next news conference, then they deny this is on the table. So they're going back and forth, back and forth. Are we going to send them F-16s or are we not? According to information, the United States and NATO is already training Ukrainian pilots how to fly the F-16. But it's going to take some time. And will it actually make a difference? If France and the United States actually are able to train these pilots, will it make a difference? Because this war could be over before these fighter jets are introduced into Ukraine. We also have some breaking news that Bakhmut, the city of Bakhmut that Russia has been fighting Ukraine over an entire year, is finally falling to Russian forces. Bakhmut is finally falling to Russian forces. Russia have it surrounded. Russian soldiers are all throughout the city now. Ukrainian military is retreating in mass from the city of Bakhmut. This spells pretty much one of the biggest defeats for Ukrainian forces. Let me get this on the screen for you guys about Bakhmut. So Russia has been trying to take this strategic town in Ukraine for over a year, and this is probably one of the most heavily defended towns that Zelensky, he did not want to lose this town for some reason. But as of today, the order has been given for the retreat of the Ukrainian forces. It is order given chaotic retreat of Ukrainian forces from Bakhmut Bridges have been blown up, dozens dead, captured, or trapped. Wagner to Ukrainians leave. We've left a corridor open for you. He said the retreat of the Ukrainian forces from Bakhmut is chaotic, with dozens dead, wounded, captured, or trapped. Ukrainians blew up at least 3 bridges in an attempt to buy time to withdraw from the city. A railway bridge was blown up in the northeast of the city. A car crossing northwest of Bakhmut was also destroyed. The road led to the neighboring town of Chazivar Yar. The bridges connecting the eastern part of the city were also destroyed. The entrance to the city is closed. It is no longer possible to use the Krovmo Road. The Russians has also taken the TO 504 highway east of another area under control. The city of Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine is essentially surrounded. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of the Russian mercenary group Wagner, said in a video released today, adding that Ukrainian forces have only access to one road leading out of the city. Wagner's units have virtually surrounded Bakhmut. There remains only one road open that leads out of the city. At the same time, the head of Wagner, whose men are at the forefront of the battle to capture the city, asked Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to withdraw Ukrainian forces from Bakhmut, a large part of which has already been destroyed. So I'm not going to read the entire article, but it does look like that the strategic city of Bakhmut is totally gone. It doesn't look good for Zelensky, but Zelensky has stated, and his military says they're not going to negotiate with Russia, folks. Wow. They're not going to negotiate. They said they're not going to give up any inch of their territory. So will they or will they not? This war is just consuming a lot of innocent lives. They said that the average lifespan, listen to this, the average lifespan for a Ukrainian soldier on the front lines is 4 hours. 4 hours that they take these new recruits right off the street, a couple of weeks of training, send them to the front lines, and they're dead within 4 hours. It's horrible. And folks, listen, these people in Ukraine, they're being sacrificed. They're losing their lives for Zelensky. In the United States, which is terrible. I know they're fighting for the country. They're fighting very bravely. But unless NATO goes into the war and helps them, there's no way for them to win. Unless NATO invades Ukraine and starts fighting Russia directly, there's no way. Because Russian troops outnumber, they have more artillery, they have more resources, they have more ammunition, and the killing is just going to continue unless there's a peace treaty or unless NATO gets involved. And if NATO does get involved, like I said that I think they will, then it's only going to escalate to a major fight of 2 nuclear powers in the world. So there's really no win-win situation. The only win-win situation is that they negotiate a peace treaty now. They stop the fighting. They declare a ceasefire, and they say, stop fighting. We're going to sit down with all the participants in the war. We're going to work out a peace treaty that satisfies both countries. That's the only hope that we have, folks, that this war will stop and we can eliminate World War III from happening right now. But I don't believe it is. I think it's just going to continue to escalate until NATO does get involved. Now, we've had reports that NATO is reinforcing the entire European front. NATO in the United States is sending everything but the kitchen sink to the European battlefield, folks, because we're not going to be using our Abrams tanks to fight China. Do you know that? We're not going to be invading China, folks. We're not going to need 6,000 Abrams tanks to invade China or Taiwan. There's no way for us to deliver them tanks over there without China destroying our transport ships. So those tanks can only be really used in Europe against Russia. So that's why we're sending most of our military hardware, our heavy armor to Europe, like Russia, not China. China, if we do go to war with China, it's going to be an Air Force battle. It's going to be ballistic missiles from fighter jets, aircraft carriers, stuff like that. It's not going to be in tanks and in artillery. So the only way that we could really defend Taiwan is to send them the tanks, the artillery now, and pre-position all that equipment in Taiwan now, because once the war starts between China and Taiwan, there's no way to reinforce Taiwan. China will sink our ships. They'll sink our ships. We cannot get within 1,000 miles of Taiwan because they have hypersonic missiles also that can hit our aircraft carrier. So I think NATO is going to go all in, folks. I think the Biden administration, John Kirby, Lloyd Austin, Jens Stoltenberg, they're going to do whatever it takes. And I do believe that there's going to be a surprise attack against Russia. I think one morning you're going to wake up and the headlines are going to be USA attacks Russia, or that scenario that I gave you on Rumble. So let me show you this, folks. I posted a video on Rumble with how the United States is going to trigger. Well, I really don't even want to show you. But go to Rumble, watch the video with the two fists, the Russian fist and the United States fist going like this. They're painted different colors. Go and watch that video. The last one we did a major news update yesterday. Go watch that video about how the U.S. is going to trigger a war with Russia. Because there's certain things on YouTube we can't even talk about. But you need to watch that video. This was a major update. I haven't given a major update in 2 or 3 days, and we did one last night. So go there, go to Rumble, and watch that video. But it does look like things are accelerating. Let me see what else we have for you guys. We just checked the earthquake site. No big earthquakes yet. There are no mega earthquakes as of today so far. There has been a couple 6s, a couple 5s. We had a 5.6 in Sandwich Island, a 5.0 in Turkey. There was a 6 something yesterday. But so far, that prediction of the seismologist from Norway has not come true. He said that there was a major earthquake watch for March the 3rd through March the 7th, that there could be mega quakes in different parts of the world. That has not happened yet, but this is still early on March the 3rd. So will it happen? I don't know. There's currently a couple CMEs. Let me read you what it says, the Geomagnetic Storm Watch from spaceweather.com. He said minor G1 class geomagnetic storms are possible on March the 4th and 5th in response to an incoming CME hurled into space by the M8.6 class flare on February the 28th. The CMA is not heading directly for Earth. Instead, it will only deliver a glancing blow when it arrives. So no major CMEs coming in. But folks, there's it is hard to keep track of all of these different things happening right now on the Earth. The best advice that I can give you is just be ready for it.
The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and that's what it's called. French, also the North Atlantic Alliance, between 30 member states, 28 European countries, 2 North American, established after the World War II. Signed in Washington, the document of 4th of April 1949. NATO is a collective security system. Claimed to be independent, member states agree to defend each other against attacks by third parties during the Cold War. The NATO operates as a check on the perceived threats by Russia, obviously, Soviet Union. The alliance remained in place after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, really, and has been involved in military operations in Bahrain, Middle East, South Asia, Africa. The organisation's motto, Latin for a mind unaffected. Right. So, Obama, Albania, Belgium, Bahrain, Canada, Croatia, Czech Republic, I can't pronounce these words, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Italy, Latvia, can't pronounce his names, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Spain, Turkey, United Kingdom, United States. So here's the chair, Admiral Rob, Bauer, Committee of the Royal Netherlands Navy. United States Superintendent Christopher something, can't pronounce it. Let's have a look. Expenses, oh my gosh. 1.050 trillion. Is that dollars or pounds? Main headquarters is in Brussels, while the NATO's military headquarters is in Belgium. Oh, I didn't know that. NATO's members include 3.5 million soldiers and personnel, and their combined military spending as of 2020 is over 57% of the global nominal total. Moreover, members have agreed to reach or maintain the target defence spending at least 2% of the GDP by 2024. Wow. NATO formed with 1,200 members. Military operations. In 1991, the Iraq invasion of Kuwait, airborne early warning aircraft. Oh, 1992, the Bosnian War. United Nations Security Council's Resolution 816, 1992. NATO began enforcing April 93 Operation Deny Flight. I'm going to look at the history here. You got a United Nations Protection Force. Let's have a look. Don't they bloody like wars? There you are. You got United Nations Security Council passed a resolution 1199 in 1998. anyone else. Why do they want to have the Russian? That's the thing, you see. We've had all these wars before. So why they want to get in the war in Afghanistan? September 11 attacks United States. What's that got to do with the war? Invoked the NATO's Article 5. Whatever that really means. You've got UN Security Councils. I think I said that. The radiation bloody strong. Iraq training mission. 2004 was it? Wow. Yeah, done the other bloody Libya intervention as well. Don't know what that's about. Arab. Good Lord. I've been busy. Syrian civil war. What year was that? Partnership with third countries. Peace Programme 1924. Bilateral partner countries. Commonwealth Independent States. Euro-Atlantic Partnerships 1997. So what they got to do with Russia? Let's go back on that one on Russia. Gosh, no, NATO. I want NATO. NATO and Russia. I want to know what the connection is there. Doing some homework. US and NATO are raising a clash of nuclear power. Oh my gosh. How NATO's expansion helped drive Putin to invade Ukraine. The Russian military forces and Russian backs had invaded Ukraine. NATO Secretary, let's have a look at this article. What site is it off? NPR website, whatever that is. So, NATO General Secretary, quote so it is, says NATO alliance condoned in strongest possible terms Russia's attacks on Ukraine, of course, with the invasion of a 30-year-old foreign policy debate has made a return to centre stage. The question, should NATO, the mutual defence pact formed in the wake of World War II, that had long served to represent Western interests and counter Russia's influence in Europe, expand eastward. NATO founding articles declare that any European country that is able to meet the alliance's criteria for membership can join, and that includes Ukraine. The US and its allies in Europe have repeatedly said they are committed to that open door policy. But in the words of Russian President, NATO's eastward march represents decades of broken promises from the West to Moscow, apparently. You promised us in the 90s that NATO would not move an inch to the east. You cheated us shamelessly, Putin said at a news conference in December. The US says a ban on expansion was never on the table, but Russia insists it was. And now Putin is demanding a permanent ban on Ukraine from joining the NATO pact. Unsurprisingly, when you look at the evidence of what happened, it's somewhere in between. A post-Cold War historian whose book some author made had drawn a map up. So where's Russia? Quite a large country. So you've got around Ukraine and the map, Black Sea, the Baltic, down part of Greece at the bottom, Turkey, it's a look in the article. So what is the origins of Putin's not move an inch claim? For the first 4 decades of NATO's existence, the treaty represented the US, Canada, America's closest allies in Western Southern Europe. On the other side of the Iron Curtain were the Soviet Union and its allies in Central Europe, Eastern Europe, including the former East Germany. But long-standing divide was challenged in 1989 when an anti-communist protest spread across East Germany and other countries in Central and Eastern Europe. Now, early in the effort to reunify Germany, US officials wrestled with the question of sovereign control of the East. What could entice sovereign leader, and it quotes who it is, to withdraw? The Americans guessed that maybe what, and it quotes who it is, wanted to, in exchange for letting Germany unify to a promise that NATO will not expand eastward. And so the Secretary of State, James Barker, in a secretive way in early stage negotiations, and it says to the Russian representative, how about this idea? How about you let your half of Germany go? And we agreed to move that one piece forward. But President George H.W. Bush rejected the idea at the time. And when more formal negotiations began in 1990, a ban on NATO expansion was never actually offered. There is some disagreement about what took place during the Barker and I can't pronounce that surname talks in February 1990. Some say that when Baker suggested NATO shift not 1 inch to the east, he intended to refer only to East Germany. And because neither side had begun to think about NATO's expansion beyond that, seamlessly conflicting comments from the US officials and Russian representatives made years later did not help clear this up. Former US Secretary of State, quote so it is, Rice, said as a recent, and I'll go back to the date of the article in a minute, that nobody was ever imagining, and it quotes Czech, I can't pronounce that name, or Poland or Hungary at the time. The historical record shows otherwise, according to there's loads of notes and letters and speeches and interviews show that Western leaders were in fact already considering NATO's enlargement by the time February 1990 talks took place, he says. What is not in dispute is that Representative Russia later agreed to withdraw from East Germany in exchange for financial concessions. So financial remedy is all to do with money, isn't it? Financial input. In a treaty that did not place limits on the future expansions of NATO. But this racial bitterness afterwards still, to this day, Putin is saying, look, there was this other offer on the table, right? And that's sort of factually accurate in a narrow sense, but it doesn't reflect the reality of the treaty. Why did the West want to enlarge NATO? And how did Russia react? So when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, NATO expansion question became more urgent, both for the US looking to cement its influence in Europe and for the countries emerging from the communist control like Poland, Hungary and the Czech Republic, I think it's pronounced. They believed that the United States could bring them into the West, which was what they wanted, and they believed that the United States could protect them if Russia ever become aggressive again. And James, quote, so it is, an American university professor, wrote extensively about NATO. From the beginning, Russia strongly objected to NATO's borders creeping closer to its territory in 1997. Then the Russian president, Boris, can't pronounce the surname, tried to secure a guarantee from Bill Clinton that NATO would not add any former sovereign republican, and Clinton refused. The US hoped that its financial support, along with the diplomatic overtures from NATO, could be enough to counterbalance Russia's displeasure over expansion. But ultimately that didn't work. Over the course of the 1990s and early 2000s, NATO expanded 3 times. First to add the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, then 7 more countries even further east, including former sovereign republics, Estonia, Latvia, I can't pronounce these names, and finally Albania, can't pronounce these countries, in 2009. Obviously, the more it did to stabilize the situation in Central and Eastern Europe and bring them into the West, the more it really got up the nose of the Russians. Why is Ukraine important? Ukraine is the largest former sovereign republican country in Europe, besides Russia itself, has been a key part of the alliance talks since it dedicated its independence from the USSR in 1991. In 3 decades since NATO expansion has put 4 member states on Ukraine's borders. The Russians were always concerned about how far NATO's enlargement was going to go. It's one thing for Poland to come in, or the Czech Republic, can't pronounce that name, to come in, and that's not just a big deal. But there was always a concern about Ukraine. Putin himself has long said he believes Ukrainians and Russians to be a single people, unfiltered by language, culture and religion. July 2021 he wrote a long essay about the historical unity between the two nations. The US and the Western Allies' successful independent Ukraine was a prominent potential symbol that Russia's time as a powerful empire coming to an end. During the early 2000s, President George W. Bush published for Ukraine to become a NATO member. France and Germany opposed it, fearing escalations with Russia. The result was the worst of all worlds compromise in 2008, said a promise that Ukraine would eventually join NATO, but without any concrete timeline and pathway to do so. When the compromise was announced, some analysts were surprised that there was not this major temper tantrum from Putin, Russia. American diplomat who served as the Deputy Secretary of NATO from 2006 to 2019. It needed another 15 years before the major temper tantrum ensured. Unfortunately, we're experiencing it now. Why has this come up again now? Ukraine cannot immediately join NATO. As spring, I think it's pronounced, members are asked to meet various conditions before they're allowed to begin the process of joining a member action plan. NATO allies have not yet granted that to Ukraine and have long appeared uninterested in offering, in part because of political complications with Russia. Now, Russia's protests over Ukraine's future membership have put the US and NATO in a difficult spot over NATO's open door policy. The louder Moscow protested, the more determined Western capitals became to deny Russia what was seen as a veto over alliance discussion making. And a Russian specialist claimed that RAND Corporation, RAND Corporation has a lot to do with the Illuminati. Educate yourself to law and go and have a look. And the more Putin had tried to control Ukraine and its foreign policy, the more he had pushed Ukrainians themselves to look towards the West. Ukrainians, the Russians, can't pronounce these words either. Ukraine in 2004 was a major turning point. Afterwards, popular support for joining NATO rose amongst Ukrainians, who had once been a bit reserved about the alliance. Putin had constructed in his head and in his heart perhaps the idea that NATO is encirculating him, and that has always been the intention, said Rice, speaking at a Council of Foreign Relations panel. Council of Foreign Relations has to come into it, doesn't it? Ukraine is moving closer to the West, but it's doing it because the Russians have been axing Ukrainian territory and threatening the Ukrainians. Russia itself broke a promise in the Budapest Memorandum, a treaty Russia signed with the US and the United Kingdom in 1994, committed to respect the independence and sovereignty and the existing borders Ukraine in exchange for Ukraine, I suppose, breaking away from Russia. None of that had deterred Putin, for whom Ukraine, his personnel says, quote, a former US intelligence officer now with the Center for New America Security. Putin, over 22 years now in power, has tried and failed repeatedly to bring Ukraine back into its fold. And I think he senses that now it's time to take care of this unfinished business. Told to the author of this website, it's NPR Weekend Edition on a Sunday. So let's have a look at the date of this article. Okay, so that was a year ago, February 24th, 2022. Well, that's intriguing. Add that. And there's a bit of history about Ukraine. Whether or not any of that is any evidence. Who knows? And that was on Wikipedia website. Article, and checked out the links to NATO and the history of NATO, how it's formed. So there you go. Quarter to 8 now.
For any natural disaster or any major disaster, just like people that live in Florida, you're always preparing for a hurricane, because hurricane season comes around and the trees are blown down, the telephone poles are broken in half. We lived in Florida for 30 years, and we went through a lot of hurricanes, and we were without power for over 21 days, folks, 21 days. And so you just need to have your preparations ready for any kind of natural disaster or man-made disaster that you can survive, 2 or 3 weeks or longer, on your own without power, without electricity. We couldn't leave our house for a week because the trees in our neighborhood, the big oak trees, fell down in the road and they were blocking the road. You couldn't drive anywhere until the city crews came in and cut them up with chainsaws and hauled them off. All we could do was walk around our neighborhood. So many things are going on. I did want to bring you this breaking news about the potential of of giving Ukraine fighter jets. But let me bring you another story that the German Leopard tanks are now operating in Ukraine. Now, this was a very sore point for Russia, that Germany would be supplying Ukraine with German tanks, because Russia, in the war with Adolf Hitler, Russia lost an estimated total of civilians and military, 27 million people, folks, fighting Adolf Hitler. We didn't lose nowhere near that, folks. The United States did. I don't think we lost 1 million people in World War II, but Russia, fighting Hitler, lost an estimated total of 27 million people. That's a lot of people. So there is a real sore spot in Russia, that they're going to have to be facing down German tanks once again. So let me go to the article and show you this, that there is now German tanks very close to the front lines. Leopard 2 tanks arrive in Chasiv Yar, first time since World War II. So close to the Russian soil. Leopard 2s are now very close to Bakhmut, says the Russians. And this is a picture of one of the Leopard 2 tanks that Germany has donated, or Poland, to Ukraine. Leopard 2 tanks were spotted near Bakhmut. Yan Gagin, advisor to the deputy head of the DPR, Donetsk People's Republic, told Rossiya TV channel. This is the first time since the Second World War that German tanks have come so close to the traditional Russian border, while they are practically on Russian territory, as the Donetsk Republic practically belongs to the Russian Federation, following a decree signed by the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Leopard tanks are a common target of Russian forces, Gagin said. He stressed that it is already clear that Ukraine has lost Artemovsk or Bakhmut. That's the same town. The only question is when this will happen. So let me show you a video. I think, okay, that's not the one. So they actually have a video, the Leopard tanks. Okay, here it is. Leopard tanks seen near Bakhmut. This is from Pravda, one of the Russian news agency, Pravda, Donetsk region. So this is one of the Leopard tanks that they photographed in the area, now operating against Russian forces. So, you know, this is basically lining up to be another world war, because the United States has also pledged our Abrams tanks. So anything is possible, folks. You know, anything is possible now. But I think we are, if NATO keeps on the path that they are going, then they're not going to let this war die. Unless Zelensky, he sits down, and I had another article for you, but I can't find it. But unless Zelensky sits down with Russia and works out a deal, you know, this war is just going to continue. Innocent people are going to be dying from both sides. And the tragedy is that this did not have to happen. It didn't have to happen. If Ukraine would have abided by the Minsk agreements back in 2014, this war could have been avoided. And listen, let me explain the Minsk agreements. The Minsk agreements were to give Donetsk and Luhansk in the Donbass area autonomy. They weren't breaking away from Ukraine. They were not going to be a separate state. They were not going to belong to Russia. It was basically giving them autonomy to speak the Russian language, to have their own culture, and, you know, but they weren't separating from Ukraine. And Zelensky did not want that. He didn't want to agree to give them autonomy. So once Ukraine started attacking the Donbass area for 8 years and killed over 14,000 Russian citizens that live in that area, well, Putin came to the rescue, and that's why we have the war. But all they had to do was implement the Minsk agreements. But We didn't want it. NATO didn't want it. The United States, we kept throwing monkey wrenches into the peace agreements. And we had Angela Merkel, we had Francis Hollande, who was the prime minister of, or president of France at that time. It meant that it was a sham, it was a deception. And they only signed those agreements to give Ukraine more time to arm their military to fight Russia. So if you look at the facts are that we overthrew the Ukrainian government in 2014, Victoria Nuland under Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden. We overthrew their government. We trained and equipped the Ukrainian military to fight Russia. And that's what we wanted from the beginning. So this war right now that you're seeing with all these people dying, it was planned by the United States and NATO back in 2014 when we overthrew their government. And now all of these people have died, and there is estimated anywhere from 400 to 600,000 Ukrainian citizens that either are dead, missing, or wounded. And no one really knows how many Russians have died. But it is a shame, folks. War is hell. So many innocent men and women are dying when all of this could have been avoided. But you know, this is basically a war for the United States and NATO. It's not really, it doesn't really have anything to do with Ukraine. Ukraine just happens to be the spot that they picked to fight Russia. That's all Ukraine is. It is a strategic spot on the map of the world. It's just a strategic spot that NATO and the United States picked so they can inflict the worst damage on Russia that they can inflict. And it really has nothing to do with Ukraine. They figured to go ahead and engage the Russian military. And I don't think the United States or Joe Biden or NATO is going to stop until they either weaken Russia or try to push them out. But I don't think that's going to happen. And I think this war is going to escalate into the unthinkable. But no one really knows when that's going to happen. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for showing up today. So many things going on. Are you ready, folks? You know, we talk about this all the time. We can have all the preparations in the world. I mean, you could have 4 or 5 40-foot containers full of food, water, batteries, peanut butter, whatever you like to eat in your yard. And if you die and go to hell, then all of those preparations, all of that money that you spent is not going to help you one bit, folks. Yes, physical preparations are good, but if you die without Jesus Christ, then your future is bleak for eternity. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are you sure that if you died today, you would go to heaven? Are you 100% sure? If you cannot say yes to that question, I'm going to lead you in a prayer. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. There's only one way to heaven, folks. And that's through the blood of Jesus Christ. So if I'm speaking to you anywhere across the world, this could be your last chance. You know, we have people dying every day. Healthy people are just dropping dead all around the world for no reason. Well, there is a reason, but we can't talk about it. But people are just dying, you know, heart attack, stroke, cancer. You probably know friends and relatives that were here a couple weeks ago, but now they're gone. No one is promised of tomorrow. We don't know when we're going to leave this earth, but we do need to get ready for that day when it comes. And I'm trying to get you ready now for eternity. So I'm speaking to you anywhere across the world. If you want to give your life to Jesus Christ, if you want to get born again, if you will repeat this prayer, Jesus will forgive all of your sins today. Just say, Dear Jesus, I know I'm a sinner, Lord, and I ask you right now to forgive me all of my sins and wash them away with your precious blood. I do believe that you are the Son of God, and I do believe that you died on that cross, and that you shed your blood for me, and that you rose again the 3rd day. Thank you, Jesus, for saving my soul. Thank you, Jesus, for forgiving all of my sins. And thank you, Jesus, for giving me eternal life. Amen. Now, if you said that prayer, you are saved and you are born again, folks. No one can take you out of God's hands. No one. But we must in love toward people. You know, everybody on this has had arguments, has held grudges, have hated other people for what they've done, stabbed them in the back. Everybody, folks, has been done wrong on this earth, me and Adrian included. But we got to forgive people. And I know that's hard for a lot of people because they have been hurt by an ex-husband, an ex-wife, a friend, a co-worker, a family member. You've been hurt dearly. Some of you've even been physically abused by somebody. But God commands us to forgive. Do it in the love of Jesus Christ. I know it's hard to do that, folks, but we have to. Jesus said, if you do not forgive others, he's not going to forgive you. Jesus forgave us all our sins, every last one of them. We have to let it go. Give it over to God. You know, God's going to have the last say. If that wicked person that has hurt you or stabbed you in the back does not repent of their sin and give their life to Jesus Christ, well, God's going to judge that wicked person. And they're going to spend an eternity in hell in the lake of fire forever and ever. Let God judge that person. Don't go to hell holding on to that grudge, holding on to that hate until you end up in hell with a person that you hate. Because you're only hurting yourself. Hate is a powerful force. It will make you physically sick. Give it over to God. Let God judge that person. God's going to judge that person. They're going to pay for their sins and their evil, wicked deeds if they don't repent. But don't go to hell hating that person. Walk in love. Jesus gave us two powerful commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. If you treat other people good, then you fulfill the law. But if you forgive that person, it doesn't mean that you have to invite them to dinner every Sunday, folks. It doesn't mean that you have to call them up and be buddy-buddy with them again. It doesn't mean that. You can forgive them. You don't have to associate with them again. But you can forgive them on what they've done for you. You can give it over to God. I'm not telling you got to call them up and go over.
Now let's listen to the weather.
It's time to stop shortchanging your dog and start giving them the best that Raw Food has to offer. So,
well, thanks for tuning in to today's Bird Video. Going to have a look at weather that takes 14 days for today's Bird Video. Day down, take the 13th of March, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the XFS PCM on bubbles. Maybe we're trying a couple of weeks. We'll have a look at CFS feature at the end of the video. For April itself, and I should get sorry about you here, but to say that first video today was the 6 a.m. upload. And also Gemma Grace, so please check out those two videos if you'd like to do that. Like, share, subscribe on Bits. So very much everybody would do that. So I'm back from the root canal. Everything went fine. Didn't think I've been paying it at all. Still rather numb, so around here, so you probably hear, but I'm not speaking 100%. I will just rattle through the video and then get it done. Sorry if you have a job to understand what I'm saying more than normal on this really is because I'm still a little bit numb, but most anaphylaxis is worn off and not in pain. So it went really, really, really good so far. So I can't complain about my root canal. But hopefully it'll carry on. Okay, I'll be pain-free and we'll be able to do a Friday night stream after 10 o'clock tonight. I'll let everybody know next time we see them if there are any problems doing the Friday Night Live. But so far, so good. I'm going to share all of the lovely messages. I have read them, not responding to them yet, but thank you so much for all of the lovely messages you left me about my root canal. You're absolutely lovely. Thank you so much. Right, okay, let's crack on. I'm running very late with this, of course, so I'm going to try and get this done quite quickly. And the starts off with CT. So central temperature now sitting at 5.4, which is 0.3 of a degree. 3 degree below average. That is provisional to yesterday, to the 2nd of March. That will drop more over the next week or so. Be interesting where that is by this time next week, won't it? Already a little bit below average, and it's only going to fall further. These were GFS upgrade temperature amplification ensembles. Looking at London today, I will get back to the set locations and that in the coming days, but very quick, I just got London up, as a quick place to get. So the red light is 30-year air temperature average for London, starting off a little bit above average with red temperatures at the moment. Of course, it is quite chilly under the high pressure over the northeast wind. Going to be cold over the next week or so. Temperatures will start dropping really from tomorrow onwards, so by Sunday into next week, looking really quite cold. Into the middle part of March, or second half of the month, the upper temperatures are showing a recovery there in London. There's quite a lot of scatter, but looks like the trend around mid-month would be turn things less cold or maybe a bit colder. So case-wise, some more dry weather to go over the next few days into the early part of next week. But then beyond that, looking much more unsettled for the second week of March. So you've got precipitation spikes there. And that will, be quite unsettled. Maybe a bit of a drying trend as you look at the second half of the month. Of course, this precipitation here is when it's also going to be quite cold. So if it's cold enough, some of that precipitation could be snow. It's how snow is looking for London quite significant.
Wow.
I think that's quite the snowiest that we've seen for London this winter. Although we're to be going to spring now, but get what I mean. We haven't seen a snow row like that for London, I don't think, over the past few months. And if we have a look at the Northampton, there the snow spikes are even more significant, especially around the 10th through 13th or 14th and whatnot. So plenty of snow possibilities. Looking out into next week and through the second week of March. Snow risks then easing away into the second half of the month. Of course, looks like we're going to be a less cold then. Temperature anomalies for the 11th of March going to be colder than average. Not just UK, most parts of Europe included in that. Temperature anomalies from the 11th of March. Still largely dry temperature in many areas, but far north Scotland and southern England, nearer North Scotland, with western average. Then expect these charts to trend wetter over the next few days. From northschool.net says that high pressure is still dominating weather today. We're still bringing in this cool and cloudy northeast wind across England, Wales, in particular with high pressure around Greenland and around West Scotland, I should say. That high pressure will be going into retrograde. I've seen some very interesting stuff on Twitter of me going, I shared it on my Twitter last night. So you're going to have a laugh. I think from yesterday, James walked in there. You're going to have a laugh and check that out. But anyway, high pressure will go into retrograde over the next few days and move up to Greenland and Iceland. That is already beginning actually with the southerly wind. See how the southerly wind is pushing up into Greenland there. There we go. What am I doing? See how the southerly wind is going up to Greenland like that? That's going to produce warm air advection. That will help to retrogress the high pressure from western Scotland up to Greenland over this weekend. So that's how the setup is looking by midnight on Monday. High pressure reaching through the Atlantic, heading up to Greenland and Iceland, going into retrograde. We're retrogressing high to Greenland and Iceland. Down comes this northerly wind, so we go from Tuesday, really cold northern setting it across the country. And looking cold and wintry there with the UKMet run by the time we get into the middle of next week. Then low pressure has to go push that cold air out of the way, runs into the cold air from Wednesday to Thursday. That could bring snow to some parts of the country. Well, it does rain down south, but anywhere to the north of this low, could get quite a snowy spell. The second half of next week, definitely one to watch. We will be updating Snow Watch, I think, this weekend. Icon was like that. The big light bring down that cold north wind through the early part of next week. Courtesy of low pressure to north and east, high pressure blocking around Greenland and Iceland. Same idea, second half next week, I start to run in to that cold air. The low pressure is further south in Icon, running in through the Channel and northern France. That could bring some snow to southern parts of England. But most places will actually just be very cold with, snow showers and whatnot. By the end of next week, it's midday Friday. That low getting out of the way, more low pressure waiting winds, but still looking very cold at that point. Starting under cold air. The GFS midnight again, showing that wintering from the north over the next couple of days. So a very cold northerly setting in the beginning of next week, when low pressure runs in from the Atlantic. The first low running in across the southern areas Thursday into Friday. That one brings us both snow to the south. Have a look at the precipitation forecast in a moment. Back to those northerly winds on Friday, and then into next weekend, another low coming in from Friday into Saturday. Again, that's quite on quite sunny track, so that suggests snow perhaps for England and Wales. Cold air maintained through the weekend. Another low running through the Channel there, Monday the 13th. So it's cold and wintry right way up to 19th of March there, down with the jet. Next time, a bit lighter around the middle of the month. High pressure collapses through the country for the southwest winds over in of the Atlantic for snow and whatnot there in the middle part of the month. However, by the end of the Jeff has been quite run the high pressure trying to re-establish across the country, mainly hinting going towards Scandinavia. Across the country, mainly hinting going towards Scandinavia. This would be precipitation. This would be precipitation type forecast. We find out now having done that. This would be precipitation forecast. You know what I mean? From the weather outlook of next time at GFS midnight run. Here we go then. Lots of dry weather a day or so. Go through into Sunday. That's when wintry showers start appearing in the north. Sunday into Monday, down comes that colder air. So I go from Monday into Tuesday. Yes, got suggestion of snow there. Overnight Monday, Tuesday across England, Wales, more snow showers into Scotland there.
Oh wow.
Tuesday itself was a very wintry day. Most northerly northeast winds, lots of snow showers, wintry showers down across the country. A cold and wintry day on Wednesday. And then snow for some parts of the country by that Channel low as we go through into Thursday. But that's been a while, very long while. Seems to be seeing like a widespread snow there across lowland southern England, courtesy of the Channel low. I'm not sure when the last time was that would have happened, but a very long time ago. So that gets away by Friday morning. They're left still with the cold air, and then in comes the next low. This was a bit further northwards. This brings a widespread snow then to Ireland, England, Wales, and over rain. So just turned back to rain in the extreme south and southwest. But this is more of a snow event for like Wales, the Midlands, and eastern England over the Tower. Maybe that gets out of the way, and we maintain cold air then into the weekend. Goodness gracious me, another low coming in there. Wow, what a run. That looked like GFS run was another low there. Midday 3:00 on Sunday, 12th of March, big snow there, then down in the south. Goodness gracious me. And then beyond that, we start turning less cold as low pressure comes in off the Atlantic.
2 weeks, really.
With that, but then it turns back to rain, and we're looking at a milder middle part of the month. Right, that's midnight. Well, what about 6:10? Here we go. Today got the cold northern digging in on Monday. Northern they came through the early part next week as well. They'll be bringing the cold air and snow showers with them. And then the low pressure coming in off the Atlantic Thursday into Friday, running across the south. That will bring snow to southern parts of the country. Another low comes in Friday to Saturday. It's not north with that one. And more towards rain down in the south. And then go beyond that into the second half of the month. And the idea of the 6th there is to increasingly build the heights to our south and east, so possibly going back towards higher pressure there into the second half of
So now there's 2 weeks of snow in England. And now, change the subject again. 50-minute city, smart cities already started in England. So listen.
Your council or social housing. Your council or social housing provider does not want you to know this. If you have ongoing issues,
account now, the website link is there to my web. Thank you, everyone. That's cool. Good to see Julie in the house, moderators in the house, all outside. Awesome, awesome, awesome as ever. So yes, it's been a pretty mad time of it. Okay, the 15-minute city thing is very real, and we're going to uncover even more stuff than we've unpacked before. So lots of you guys who have seen my previous videos and indeed live streams on this topic will be thrilled to know there's lots more information coming, and it's going to be on this live stream, and obviously it's going to be replayed around the world for weeks and months and years, however long it takes for people to fully understand what is actually going on. And yes, looking at the t-shirt, I remember buying this back in 2008, okay? And it's by this company, Fear in Clothing. Some of you old school guys will know what I'm talking about back in the day. And yes, I never thought I'd be wearing it on a live stream. So yes, I said to my partner when I first met her, I said to myself, what I wanted to do is to get to 100,000 subscribers, however long that takes. Then I'm going to start waking people up. So obviously it's happened a bit before then, because synchronicity and time is all gelled just at the right time, and now is the time to reveal why we prep. Okay, and yes, this is one of the reasons why we prep. So the 15-minute cities. Oh yes, exactly. It's going to be crazy. So 550 people in the chat. That's awesome. Let me have a look. So what we want to know before everyone else turns up is where you guys are from. I'm always keen to know this, because every single week it seems that we're getting people from countries that we've not seen before on here join on board. I just noted, and he's so glad he's out of it. And indeed, lots of my friends heeded the warnings over all of these years to do what they could to get out of urban environments. Okay, because if you can see what's coming, and you can always see how it's rolling out already, yes, if you are in an urban area, you need to do whatever you can to get out of there. And I know it's difficult. I myself was in an urban environment, and I've done whatever I could to get out where I am, which is in the middle of nowhere in the mountains of Wales, because I need to protect my family. And the last thing I want to do is to put them at risk living in an urban environment with what is rolling down the road. And it is rolling down the road. So we got 766 people in here right now. So we're going to have a little look. So we got, oh, look at that, Lou. Cool. I love Lou. You know what? Lou is the first place that I ever bought my real knife when I was a kid. One of those Rambo knives, right by the seaside there. Awesome part of the world. So hello, Lou. You guys are awesome living in Lou. Look at that. That's what we got. But yeah, the guy in Canada, Trudeau. Bad news. Seriously bad news. So a lot of you guys in Kent will probably see the massive influx of the migrant crisis actually in real time down there. So that's going to be crazy. Who else have we got? Let me have a look. Skegness, talking of migrants, yeah, there's big issues in Skegness recently. Okay, listen, you got there. I think it's about time. System, so it's all secure, right? Just want to point that out. So let me see. Yeah, we got, here we go, 1,030 people. Brilliant. Right, I wasn't going to do this, but I've only just remembered, right? So, yes, look at this. In the last 28 days, I don't know if you can see that, with the reflections. There we go. 1.1 million views in 28 days. And look at this. This is how nuts it's going, all right? And at 10.3 thousand new subscribers to the channel.
Only for
That's my
Freemason.
I've never had a subscription frequency of that magnitude. It just goes to show that the content I've been putting up recently is really reaching far and wide. So I seriously urge everyone watching this video, please share it. Okay. If you go to my YouTube channel on the bio, you look on the top right of the screen, it's got links to my Instagram account and now my Twitter account. Twitter is an awesome place to find up-to-date news at the touch of a button. It's insane. So I've got a Twitter account now. The website link away from YouTube and concentrate on the website. That's why it's taken so long. But I'm going to really try it at some point soon. And also, yes, if any of you got, this is my main job, and I do really welcome donate. Okay, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. Now, we want to kick off with, as early as possible, this. Okay, now this is going on tomorrow, okay, the 4th of March, midday
And
2 p.m. So it's a 2-hour roughly time to protest. So this is all about the people protesting about the 15-minute cities in Canterbury. Yes, Canterbury. Can you believe it? So Oxford, they have done amazingly well by really turning out in their droves. Over 2,000 people turned up to protest. So well done, Oxford. If any of you guys are watching from now, from Oxford, seriously, I tip my hat to you. You guys are amazing for what you're doing. And this really does need to be shared. What's going on in Oxford is going to be happening all over the UK in every single council. Yes, every single council across the UK are going to be having 15-minute cities. If they get their way, I may hasten to add. Okay, so if any of you guys are in Canterbury or very close to Canterbury, or if you're really serious and you need to travel, get to Canterbury. So much that this video gets, the more it gets spread by YouTube. So we would really want at the same time. And that's the last thing that powers that be want for these 15-minute cities. Okay? Infrastructure, very important. We can't implement any mass change without infrastructure change, and it has been going on. So, look at CCTV. Now, most of us will have seen CCTV all over the place. Not so much in rural areas, but let me tell you this, on all of the main road networks, there are CCTV. Most of them have ANPR, which is automatic number plate recognition. So highly advanced software in there to scan and read number plates. Okay, so anyone who hasn't paid the tax, their insurance, or the MOT's out or something, there's a ping and you'll probably get an automatic fine. Okay, so yes, CCTV is literally everywhere and it is growing at an astonishing rate. I remember reading years ago, this is probably back in about 2009, that the UK was in front back then, and it probably still is, as the most surveilled country on planet Earth. Okay, the size of the country, with the population numbers and the amount of cameras, UK is way in front, more than China. Would you believe that? Yes, insane, isn't it? And also, we're looking at LTN, the barriers. Now, that is another part of a pre-infrastructure trial. Okay, excuse me, So yes, we've done videos and we've showed a few pictures, and most of you have probably already seen these bollards, these barriers that have been put across roads, etc. Causing absolute chaos. Recently, I've done a live stream with a good friend of mine, Ahmed Cockroach, which was a few days ago now, and he's been in the London ambulance service for 20 plus years. Okay, and we was really talking about how these barriers are going to affect the emergency services. Okay, not just ambulances, police and fire as well. And yes, there has been real footage not made up of these incidents actually happening where these barriers are physically stopping and slowing down the emergency services. So that is very, very bad, obviously. Okay, you're probably not going to be worried too much, but you're going to be seriously worried if it really affects you or your loved ones. Okay, so your mum or your dad, they've had a fall, they really need an ambulance, and there's these little stupid planters at the end of the road, and the ambulance comes around and they have to stop, get out, move them around. Whatever it is, all these seconds are vital, and that was proven on the live stream from a 20-year plus experienced healthcare professional, my good friend who I've known for a long time now, Armand Cockroach. Okay, absolutely proof, no BS there. And also, lots of you guys will probably remember about when 2020 happened. Yes, 2020, the year that lots of things literally got changed in that 1 year. Have you ever heard the term, don't let a good crisis go to waste? Well, that's exactly what happened. Okay, if you look at Event 201, which happened in 2019, they literally discussed the whole scheme, the whole plan, what would happen if we had a pandemic, etc. And yes, they done every single thing that they said on that training exercise, which I believe was a training exercise. That's my own personal opinion. You're absolutely free to be whatever you want. Okay? This is no BS channel, and we are free to say what we want. So yes, 2020, 5G, yes. The 5G network was rolled out whilst most people were frightened and locked up in their own homes during
April
the first
2020,
lockdown.
switched on
You
my
remember?
area.
I remember. I took no part in that lockdown personally. I remember driving all over the place on empty roads. Okay, and yes, I never wore a mask. I went into supermarkets, and many times I was the only one in the whole store without wearing a mask. I refused to follow the arrows, the stupid arrows, the directions. I refused to do any social distancing whatsoever. There's no way I'm going to be dictated how I lived my life, and I believe all of that nonsense in 2020 was just pure BS anyway. You're free to have your own opinion, and I'm free to have mine. It's absolutely cool. All right. So yes, whilst all that fear and stuff was going on in 2020, lots and lots of 5G infrastructure was being rolled out. I know quite a few people, and some of them, one of them was a friend I've got. She's up in Glasgow. She was saying they just been putting brand new 5G towers right outside their kids' school
Good
when
one.
it was in lockdown. Okay, insane. And that was one of many, many, many stories. Like I said, if I change the banner quickly, yes, any information which you have, which you want to share with me, so then I in turn can go through when I have time and share it with everyone else. Anything to do with what I'm talking about, please send me an email. It's really important because there's a few guys who've emailed me already, and I'm going to be sharing what they said very soon. So yeah, we're still on the thing of infrastructure. So the 5G infrastructure is pretty much already in place. Okay, for some of you guys who don't know, when you go out for a walk, or even if you go out for a drive in your car, look at the street lights. Look on top of the street lights.
There you go.
can see tiny little, say, 2-inch stubby
Yeah,
aerials
all
on top
around
of
you.
the street lights. They are 5G antennas. If you don't know much about 5G, the wavelength is very short, and the only way that they can get them signals over long distances is literally bounce from antenna to antenna. So the street light furniture, as some people have been calling it, is a fantastic infrastructure device for these people, if I can use that term, to actually get this hooked up. It's all part of the smart grid.
Yeah.
The smart grid will be, everyone needs to have a smart meter, okay? We're talking about cities and towns, okay? So you've got a street light. One street light will probably cover whatever it is, 10 houses, maybe 2 houses, depending on how close the houses are. It's going to be sending and receiving data to and from your smart meter. And eventually they want to roll out IoT, which is the Internet of Things.
Yeah.
So every electrical device in your house will eventually, if they get away, become an IoT, the Internet of Things. And all that basically is everything will send and receive data
What
from
we
that
use.
device to your smart meter. The smart meter will gather all of the information, send it to that antenna on the street light. The street light will then be bounced along to a main central distribution point. Okay, so you're probably going to have a tower or maybe another street light with a big box on it with a larger antenna.
Yeah.
That will in turn boost the signal. It will either go up via satellites, which are in LEOs, which is low Earth orbits. So we look at what Elon Musk is doing, a very poisonous, dangerous man, in my opinion. You can believe what you want, but I've spun a rap about Elon Musk for a long, long time. Seriously. Okay? A wolf in sheep's clothing. Some people will say the Antichrist. Whatever it is, Do not trust that guy, Elon Musk. No way, not a chance. And it either goes up to the satellites or it goes onto a massive big 5G mast, which will gather all this information and send it to databases to be collected.
Yep.
So they're going to know every single thing about you in your home. And also, it will also see where you are in your home.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Through
The
the wall
technology that's out
technology.
there now. They can see you in your own home, thermal imaging, everything else. No, it's not BS. It's actually here, and it's spreading fast. Okay, this is not BS, not conspiracy tinfoil stuff. This is real. Okay, if you don't believe me, do some research yourself, and you'll come to the same conclusions like me and many others watching this video. It's frightening to the level of how this is slowly crept in. Okay? Luckily for me, when I woke up in 2008, I went into an in-depth 4-year solid research project for my own good. And I come to the conclusion after 4 years that yes, I need to start going proactive and start preparing for this. I started preparing for this back in 2012. So I had a long time to get my head around all of this, physically, mentally, and spiritually, and to get myself to where I am now when I've left the city, living out in the middle of nowhere. It's taken a long time, and I really do feel sorry for you guys who are waking up. What now? The last week, the last month, even 2020, okay? It's not much time to get your head around what's going on, and it can be really hard on the head, okay? Like I said, I've done 4 years, but I've come to the point, well, I know what's going on. I can see it coming. We haven't got long. Stop doing more research, be proactive. And here we are. So yes, the infrastructure is literally in place. Now, get this. There are, now, are you ready for this? Because this shocked me. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to read out the email in a sec. There are 321 councils all over the UK who have signed up to the 15-minute city. Yes, 321. Okay, well, it's 320, but if you count London, okay, that is the 321st city to be signed up. All of the councils, every single council in the UK is on board with 15-minute cities. Now, ask yourself this: were you consulting? Do you remember the council approaching you, doing a poll? Do you remember local newspapers doing a poll about the proposals for the 15-minute cities? Absolutely not. Or if there was, it's very, very sly, very sneaky, very under the radar. And yes, that does appear to be the case. Okay, so we're just dropping into the chat now. We've got nearly 2,000 people here. Wow, that's insane. Thank you guys for turning up. So yes, lots of people in here. That's awesome. So what we're going to do, like I said, we have got a lot of information. A nice collection of using words every single week from those old, really good dictionaries. Okay? The English language is not the universal language on this planet without good reason. It's the best, it's the biggest, and to see it literally being eroded with idiots like this, the UrbanDictionary.com, is truly, it's heartbreaking, to be perfectly frank. Right, so we take that down. So that's what we're being defined as, right? Also, some of you will remember that I'm a massive fan on the writings of this guy, Aldous Huxley. Like I said in previous videos, I have his entire collection of essays starting from the 1920s. And it took me a long time to go through them. And literally, this guy was way, way, way ahead of his time. If any of you people have ever read the book Brave New World, this is the order. If you've not read Brave New World, I strongly advise that you get a copy. It's very cheap. It's a very quick read. And it will literally make your eyes open with what's going on now, and it's written a long time ago. So let's read on. The perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of democracy, but would basically be a prison without walls in which the prisoners would not even dream of escaping. It would essentially be a system of slavery where through consumption and entertainment the slaves would love servitude. Let that sink in. This is where it's going, and it's not this. It's really, really not. So we are going to go through quite a few different videos now about what I spent ages digging around and tried to find stuff which illustrate really good points, and it's designed to make you guys think. That's all this video is. This video is designed to make you question and think things. Okay. So we're going to show lots of different videos from different people, from different eras, from different colours. Excuse me.
All right, friends, you're not going to want to miss this one. So I've been seeing a lot about smart cities, and I decided to do a little digging myself. According to the World Economic Forum's website, 36 cities, over 20 countries are participating in these smart cities, but many more to go. So what is a smart city? Smart city stands for Surveillance, Monitoring, and Analysis Reporting Technology. Basically, a digital ID will be given to every resident that will track in real time all of their daily movements, their activities, their spending habits, even their carbon footprint. They will be given 15-minute travel times to complete their daily activities unless they have a permit. And if they exceed those 15 minutes, they can be denied access to their spending and the activities that they have for the day. So of course you're like, I'm not going to move to one of those cities, right? Well, here's the thing. Because of the laws governing the Agenda 2030 land development, the government can actually seize polluted lands and force their residents to move. So if the government deems the land and water around you polluted, they can force you to move from your homes to these cities. So all of these train derailments, food processing plant fires, and other ecological disasters that are happening, they're beginning to make a lot more sense now.
Absolutely on point, and it is really well illustrated in a very short amount of time. That pretty much sums up what is going on. Okay. Now, if any of you guys think this is all conspiracy, tinfoil hat stuff, good luck, because what's going to happen is, if you are that way inclined, is you're going to wake up one day and it'll be too late. Lots of us know what's trying our best to spread this message to everyone, as many people as possible, because if you want to see, right, a test ground for these 15-minute cities and surveillance and monitoring, tracking, it's scary. Now, I remember someone a long time ago saying to me personally, right, if you want to know the future, look at China today. Okay, so let's see what China's been up to with digital surveillance and ID, which is an integral part to what's wow. If you ever heard that term, I'm an analog guy in a digital world. That's me. So automatically that puts me to the far right, apparently, and we're going to go into that later. So yes, like I said, we've been doing this for a long, long time now. Okay, so when you think, how the hell did China get all this money to do all this stuff? From you or I, this has all been planned for from such a long, long time ago. Okay, who remembers Gil Scott-Heron? Gil Scott-Heron, an awesome musician. Okay, Work for Peace. That's an awesome song. Look at the lyrics of some of his songs. He would just say, you know, America used to be a producer, Now they're a consumer, and now they have to dance to their tune. Bro, that guy had it spot on. And yes, guess what? The Americans and us British used to produce a lot of things. Who remember the best of British? Made in Britain, made in the UK. Okay, very proud of our stuff. In fact, it's only the UK and the US, maybe some stuff from Germany too, made really good quality stuff. Okay, now look at the stuff that we are all pretty much taking part in by buying stuff made in China. Okay?
Yeah.
All, it's ridiculous. You know, some of the quality is so shocking, it's insane. Okay, you've only got to look at the bottles of water and stuff you buy now. Can they make it any cheaper? It's so flimsy. I mean, you see it in supermarkets where bottles of water are all bent and falling over. No one's going to buy them. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. Anyway, don't want to digress. So we're going on to China again.
About its 1.4 billion citizens. Everyone over the age of 16 is required to have an official state-issued ID card that the government now wants to use to centralize all that information. And China is investing heavily in tech companies to help transform that government data into a virtually omniscient surveillance network. One of those companies is Medme. It recently received a capital investment of nearly $500 million, part of which is from a state-run VC fund. But the name chosen for its premier piece of technology is a bit of a tell.
Skynet.
What is that?
The Terminator is the favorite film of our founder. So they use the same name, but they want to put something good into this system.
So, okay, in the Terminator, Skynet is evil, rains down death from the sky. But in China, Skynet is good.
Yeah, that's the difference.
So how do you think your facial recognition technology will change China?
Everything happened in the public can be record. We can know exactly what happened every second in every corner of the city. This is a video stream in a subway station by our smart camera, so we can capture every face in real time. See, like some criminal person is out there. There is the red box, so there is a warning to the police station that there is a criminal person, so I need to locate them.
So when it looks out onto a crowd, it's tracking all these faces and it's cross-checking those faces against what?
Criminal database.
And how many fugitives have been apprehended through this system?
Over 3,000 cases in nationwide. Yeah, just one year.
In 1 year?
Yeah, 1 year.
Wow. So what you're working on now already seems like sci-fi. What do you think the future will look like in like 5 years?
Have you seen a film just like Black Mirror? You just stand there and your face there is a point. So maybe that is the future.
But that's like a horror show.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that is maybe kind of the future. Every people have their social points, I think.
If you like spit gum on the sidewalk, it will
Yeah,
work
very
like
points really.
Shocking, absolutely shocking. Personally, I have not seen Black Mirror. I don't watch any TV. I don't subscribe to anything. In fact, a lot of us who woke up a long time ago don't even watch movies or films anymore. I can't remember the last time I watched a movie or a film, because once you get to that level of researching and awake and trying to keep on the pulse, you haven't got time to waste sitting there and watching movies. That's my opinion. I just don't take part in it. I'd rather read a book. That's myself. Wow, 2,180 people in the chat. That's insane. So yes, that is literally what will be coming over here to the UK at some point. Definitely before 2030.
Yeah.
7 years. Yeah. If you, do you know what? If you had a time machine and you fast forward and got out of bed in 2030 in the UK, it would be completely different from what you see now, unless we all make a stand for this and do something about it. Because how it starts is what happened in Oxford, and we need to see that in every city council all around the UK. Okay, and like I said, we are going into springtime very, very shortly. Okay, so traditionally, typically, protests always take part when the weather is fair. Right?
So they're making it cold.
I really do see a massive uplift in this information getting out there just in time for people to protest all over the UK. Now, I fully understand that from some perspectives, and I agree to some extent on this, that protests don't really do much. Protests actually are very good to spreading and
Wow, that's smart cities as well now.
British Bergfield. Hello, welcome back to the Blogger channel. So join me today as we take a look at British Bergfield's stainless steel gravity water filter. A low-tech, high-performance water filtration system for home or outdoors.
Filtered water bottle, 45 quid. Straw water filter, 35 quid. I got mine cheaper than that. Life straw, yeah, same price. Similar price. You can get them on Amazon. Just bag, yeah. Life straw, yeah, I got that similar version, but cheaper. Replacement life straws, filters. Buying tablets, I got those. Now the cost of these, that is the cheapest one I've seen. British Gravity Filter and Ultimate Water. £140 quid. Depends how much the filters are to replace them. They want a small one. Yeah. The filters are 34 quid. Where they're based. At least you got a UK based store. I think they're in Wales company. Joe has been seen from
central distribution point. Okay, so you're probably going to have a tower or maybe another street light that people put out of beds in 2030 in the UK. It will be completely different from what you see now, unless we all make a stand for it.
oh, it's so cold.
Be really hard to understand, but this has been planned for a long time. And we're not talking 10 or 20 years, we're talking thousands of years. Thousands of years, this goes back, way, way back, okay? The Romans, Sumerians, it goes way, way back. All about controlling the masses, keeping them in fear, keeping them right on the edge, and every now and again, let them let off steam. And typically, that happens in the summer months, like I said earlier, when people protest. Okay, that's when people really do need to let off their steam. That's when they do. Whoever's better, they feel better. They go out and they feel they've done something. They feel good about themselves. This winter time, which is the hard one, which we're just coming out of now, thankfully, which is lots of depressions and suicide happens around Christmas with bills and expectations and weather and everything else. It's very dim in the winter time. So there is that pressure relief valve, which is typical that it is pressed in the summer months. Okay, so going back to what we saw earlier about China. Now this guy here, I love this guy, but I have a horrible feeling that he is probably no longer with us, and you'll probably understand why after you've listened to what he has to say.
If you go to China, they're piloting it a few years ago in Shenzhen. So I lived overseas. If you go to Shenzhen, back in 2017, they already had facial recognition cameras there. So if you jaywalked in Shenzhen, they would immediately detect that and send you a notification, and they would deduct money from your what they call WeChat account. They use two main apps, WeChat and Alipay. So they can actually deduct your money directly from your account. This is 4 years ago, so this is not like some sort of conspiracy theory. It's not something that's going to happen 10 years into the future. This happened pre-corona in China. And so this system in China that exists is extremely advanced. They can detect if it's a man or a woman. They can detect, they can guess your age. They can detect what kind of car model it is, who the manufacturer is. This is the sort of technology that we see in all these dystopian sort of films and whatever. And people keep putting it off and thinking that this is something that's going to happen later in my kids' lifetime or my grandkids. It's already here. And if this gets implemented anywhere, especially in a Western nation, it's not going away. Israel is already talking about the fourth shot. Then they're going to be going to herpes, and they're going to ask if you're gay. They're going to be asking if you ate 3 pizzas this week because it's unhealthy. If you buy certain books in certain countries, your country doesn't like you, lose points in the social credit score system. So this is already the reality of the world in certain places, and we need to be aware of that if we don't want that or if we do. And to be perfectly honest, anybody who wants a vaccine passport, it's a misnomer. It's total control. Everything you do or don't do will be calculated to the point where if they can detect your GPS signal, if you have a phone on you, they can detect who you're hanging out with. Oh, you're hanging out with somebody that said something bad 9 years ago on Weibo, okay, like a Chinese equivalent to Facebook or something like that, right? Oh, you lose 2 points. Oh, you bought Japanese books, you lose 5 points because you don't like Japan. This is what is going to come here because it's already there.
And we're doing that a little bit with contact tracing for COVID, aren't we? So that they can see where you're at, who you're with.
The simple reality is that the technology that CSIS has and all these big tech corporations, they already know where you are. It's just that they don't want to shock the system too much and admit that they haven't. Edward Snowden revealed all this back in 2013. He fled to Hong Kong. They wouldn't keep him there, so now he's in Russia. But the NSA has all of your information. They know your Google searches from like February 9th, 2004 in a bunker in Colorado.
Tell me, Rhonda.
right? They have all this information. So, but they don't, like in the US, they have the Fourth Amendment. They're not supposed to track you forever, right? So they pretend they don't have it, but they do. If they really want to utilize it.
Yeah, it just goes on and on and on. And I found it quite difficult to find the full size length of these clips. But to be frank, we've got so many to go through. I probably won't be able to show all of them. Now, another thing which is being pushed, because if you look at all of the agendas surrounding these 50-minute cities, like I keep saying, the main thing towards every single change which is going on and is coming down the road all has to do with climate change. Everything comes back to climate change, the whole thing. Now, the only way that I think that we wake people up and win this is we convince as many people as possible that climate change is a hoax, and we can show them easily swallowable proof. That would be the way forward, because the more people start questioning climate change, the more people are going to start questioning everything which has to do with climate change. That's my own personal opinion. I like to say, lots of people have been duped, and some of you will probably be watching this right now. But we're going to have a quick look at this guy's experience with electric cars.
I've got an electric car. It can be a total nightmare.
I'm currently sat in a charging place for my electric car, and I've had it just over a year, and tomorrow I'm selling it. Because they say that the range is like 250 miles, but it isn't. The second you go on a motorway, it just disappears within seconds. If you turn the heater on, it drains the battery, and I'm constantly looking for a charge. And just today, I've been driving around. I went to 5 different charging places. Some were broken. They were all taken up. I've come to a large place and it has like 5 or 6 charging places, and every single one is filled up with council vans charging electric cars for hours, and it's just impossible to get charged. So I'm going back to a petrol car next week. I wanted to help save the environment, but it is just ridiculous. I can't even go on a motorway. I can only drive sort of 30-40 minutes from my house before I need to start thinking about charging again, and it takes like 45 minutes to do a charge. So it's not ready in this country. Don't do it.
That's it in a nutshell. Lots of people are being duped due to this climate change BS, which is being literally rammed down everyone's throats every day, everywhere, all from the mainstream media. And do you remember Trust the Science? Yeah, well, let me tell you a bit about scientists, if you don't already know this. Most of us do, but some don't. Okay, it's important that everyone's on the same page to how we get into what's going to happen. Right? Lots of scientists and universities, etc., any academia really, they are all funded. Any of these organisations that are funded, it's easy. Look into who funds them and look into who else they're funded. Look at the patterns, connect the dots, form a picture. Okay, they're heavily biased by the shareholders and the funding. Like I've always said, follow the money. Lots of my research.
It's so cold.
Follow the money. Where's the funding coming from? So if you really want to believe all of this mainstream stuff, right, fine. But when you start looking into it, if you can be bothered, you're going to find out who finds them, who funds them, and who invests in them, and then you'll as well. So they're bound to be biased to their funding pools. Okay, that's where most of it comes from. So this, you remember when I said earlier about the yes. I've just noticed the time is 3 minutes to drink, so we're going to show this right now. Do you remember
keep drinking hot drinks. I'm going to have some soup in a minute.
Antennas on the street lights. Okay. Look at
6 degrees. I wonder I'm bloody cold.
Stand to.
Look what's popping up everywhere now. They must be doing these through night.
Yes, there's one at the road from me.
On it. So obviously that's to do with tracking you. There's one there. There's one over there. And there's one there. Right, these are popping up everywhere, people. All over Leeds. Me and my fella drove round. Seacroft, Gibson, Airville, Spokewood, round here. They're absolutely everywhere, people. This is your social credit score system. Your grid that's part of your 15-minute city. It's going to be attached to your digital ID and your central bank digital currency. So once you go through this and they don't like it, it's going to scan you. And they're going to find you and take it straight out of your digital wallet.
Good gosh.
This is bottom of South Parkway. One there, one over there. They're everywhere. They're all weird around it. And then when you go right down there towards Wybeck Valley Road, right down at the bottom there, on all junctions, is one there as well. This is the 15-minute city prison, people. What we're going to do, many a video I've put out already showing you what's going on in Oxford. They're trialling it there first, and while they're trialling it there first, they're implementing this everywhere.
I wondered why one was up the road from me.
They're building it around us, and this is all into 5G as well, because that's what the grid is.
That's why they turned on 5G in April 2022 in my area. Okay.
There's a big massive brick.
So the radiation's so
Proper,
strong all
proper
the
digital
time.
prison. This is exactly like what's in China. You
They
know,
knew
people, if
it's
you want to
going
do
to
a
be
bit of
switched
research,
on.
go look into China social credit score, and you'll see it. You know. There you go, another one. What's it saying here?
That's it. That's the one I saw.
CCTV operation for the purpose of collecting roadside video footage or retrospective analysis to establish traffic flow statistics. You see, there you go again. So, is this them trying to do a ultra low emissions place like they've already done in London? You know, look, there's another one on that corner as well, on that post. These things are everywhere, Pete.
Yeah, it just goes on and on and on. So look at that, bang on time. I'm quickly going to drop into the chat. Also, let me see. I'll go to this one. I'm going to have a look later. Right, yes, it's that time. So we're going to have a real quick break, right? No joke, this is going to be a quick one. 2,500 people. Wow, you guys are awesome. I hope you shared this video because we've got lots more to come. In fact, this video live stream might go on for a bit longer because we're not even halfway.
Good Lord. I can't sit here for all this time. This is why the radiation is so strong. The frequencies as well. Oh my goodness me. Right. It's not just about World War III. So, educateyourself.org. 5G first. Then, educateyourself.org. Get the mind control. Look at the history. 1950s began. Technology is very advanced. It's not just recent stuff. It is more advanced than that. But I can't explain it all because I'm tired. They're hacking into my head. It's brain. It's known as hive mind, brain interface, i.e. hive mind. It's too cold to do anything. Don't think I'm going to get the late shop either. I'm going to try and brave it up the road. So I'll have to go tomorrow. It's too cold. What's the weather going to be tomorrow, temperature wise? No, it's Sabbath, but I need my gas. I need 2 weeks stopping up. It's going to be grey and miserable tomorrow, but this will be daylight. In my opinion, it'll be safer in daylight. I can't wait to do it on Sunday because it's going to get very, very cold quickly. So look at Mondays. Yeah, Monday and Tuesday, so I ain't got long. Saturday. Oh, I hate going out. It's cold. I'm going to stay put. Get me some hot soup. And just fresh up. I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi off. It doesn't make much difference if the Wi-Fi's on or not, but the signals, the 5G technology, bouncing off everywhere. And I'm just going to listen into this podcast Play that in the background. It's for education purposes only. Oh, I just have to go to bed early. Try and get some sleep. It's very demonic times, right?
It's all good. So that's a big whatever, you know what I mean? But there was somebody got a 911 call from Akron, Ohio. Hey, Susie. And it was Cyrex's grandmother. They got a letter in the mail that came with a puzzle that, yes, Night Shroud, you know what I'm talking about, that had a note in it saying that there was some kind of
I'll find it. Where was I? Here you go. Got it.
Thanks to COVID and COVID lockdowns, the truth was revealed that we're all apparently clamoring for these 15-minute cities.
Creepy local authority bureaucrats would like to see your entire existence boiled down to the duration of a quarter of an hour.
You in your area will only be allowed within that 15-minute zone that you've been allocated.
Echoes of that language have recently been heard in the House of Commons.
Will the leader please set aside some time in this House for a debate on the international socialist concept of so-called 15-minute cities and 20-minute neighbourhoods?
Disinformation researchers say this all started with the pandemic.
So the idea of climate lockdown first appeared in March 2020 when news of the lockdowns in Wuhan as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic first broke into international news. And the terminology came from a set of accounts in the US who were linked to a fossil fuel think tank called the Heartland Institute. Really, it was a reframing of very old vocabulary that imagines this future of so-called climate tyranny or green tyranny, where individual civil liberties are stripped away under the pretext of solving climate change.
At the time, it gained almost no traction. But months later, a number of mainstream institutions used the efforts to tackle the pandemic as an example of the scale of what would be needed to fight climate change.
As soon as that happened, it really turbocharged this very divisive and polarizing rhetoric that pitted average people against these perceived elites.
It is about control. It is about surveillance.
15-minute cities have been drawn into this narrative of insidious control. In the UK, one particular target has been Oxford, where misinformation has recently led to councillors receiving death threats.
We've been receiving many calls and emails from worried residents in genuine fear that they might be locked in their own homes.
The reality here in Oxford is distinctly different. The conspiracy has conflated two plans: one long-term intention to spread facilities among neighbourhoods, and one traffic restriction trial due to be brought in next year, which will use cameras and a permit system to track car journeys along certain roads across the city and potentially fine people if they use them too often. There are, of course, legitimate questions as to how these schemes are implemented.
This is a traffic filter. 600 of these rolled out around the city.
Businesses, for example, reliant on drive-through trade.
It's very much a message to visitors and shoppers, people visiting our hotels and restaurants. That Oxford is not accessible and you have to stay out of Oxford.
Oxford has included multiple exemptions from the scheme, including for businesses, carers and blue badge holders. Visitors will, of course, be able to travel by other means, including public transport, or drive around the ring road to avoid the filters. The criticism has also been levelled at the way the proposals have been communicated.
There were no great efforts for everybody in the city to be made aware of what's happening. And some people still don't actually know what's happening. You can see why certain people turn to conspiracy theories. The council say they've been consulting on the idea since 2019. There is a wider point in all this, though. Behavioural change is seen by many experts as a crucial part of achieving the UK's legally binding climate targets. The UK's Climate Change Committee has, for example, urged the government to create plans to reduce demand for air travel and help change people's diets. This recent conspiracy shows how these kinds of policies are communicated may be central to their success.
What we find in research is actually if you're completely transparent about nudges, so if you
And don't wear earpods because the technology is dangerous. May hit bacteria.
If you actually state what the goals are of the nudge, be transparent and honest about it, it doesn't reduce the efficacy of those types of initiatives at all.
When it comes to the future of travel, though, disinformation has already taken root.
Disinformation has already taken root. Yeah, the BBC know all about disinformation, 110% there. I'm sure most of you would agree. Now, let me just have a quick look at oh, we've got a donation there. This is bloke with superpowers. Thank you very much for that donation, sir. That's awesome. I'm really sorry if I've missed any others, but I literally just see that pop up on there. I know we've got to crack on. Now this, right? This is from that nasty car salesman looking person. I don't even want to use the word person because I would say if this guy was on his own, he'd have no chance, right? This guy seriously needs security, and for good reason, because I don't know anyone who thinks this guy is awesome. Now, I want you to look at the verbiage, listen to the verbiage that this guy uses. Now, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about right now.
There are objections. In 2006, we banned smoking from public places, and there are objections now. What I find unacceptable, though, is some of those who've got legitimate objections joining hands with some of those outside who are part of a far-right group who are some of those outside, some of those, let's be frank, let's call a spade a spade. Some of those outside are part of the far right. Some are COVID deniers. Some are vaccine deniers. And some are Tories.
Look, hang on. The mayor has a right to be heard, right? Don't look. This people's question time is an opportunity for you to have a change of views, not to heckle or shout, please. Otherwise, we can end this very, very quickly.
Now, to those people who've got legitimate concerns, by the way, anyway, fact, some of you have got good reasons to oppose ULEZ, but you're in coalition with COVID deniers. You're in coalition. You may not like it. 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 You're in coalition with the far right.
My God.
And you're in coalition with vaccine deniers as well.
Good Lord. What a lunaticness.
Oh, you just want to.
Oh my gosh.
You really do, don't you? That guy, well, there's not many people that get under my skin, but that guy there. I'm going to put in
Public servant for
Train Oracle Club as Elon Musk, 100%. Man, if you trust that guy,
no,
you seriously need to really have a good look at yourself.
Wow.
Seriously, that guy is some evil bit of work. He really, really is.
Right, I'm ending the
So
stream.
we are going to be moving.
I'm ending the stream because I'm not going to let you get tortured. All this technology beating on my head. So educate yourself.org. And I'm just gonna. I knew a lot of stuff already, but anyway. I'm just gonna play something different now. I'm not gonna listen to any more of that. And there's a lot of things going on. Mark Steele is really useful about 5G technology. And it explains about microwaves as well. Many others do. The science of climate and radiation energy. So, signing out.
What's this?